Good day to you all. Today I am going to speak on Plato, the greatest philosopher in Greece who dedicated his life to reform the society. Plato was the student of Socrates and he studied for nearly 8 years under Socrates. His parents wanted him to be a physician, but the death of his master devastated his life. He thought that society is nothing if there is no justice. So he went in search of justice. He lived for 8 years. He was born in 427 BC. Lived up to 8 years, and throughout he went searching for justice. He wanted to establish justice in society. He wrote extensively, even on education, where Rousseau says Republic is the greatest book on education ever written. He starts academy, which lasted and functioned up to 529 AD. On the 40th year, he started that academy. He was a philosopher, a mathematician, and a moralist. So education comprised of everything: astronomy, gymnastics, music, science, mathematics, inclusive of everything. But he said politics is the master science, it is the superior science. He attached more importance to politics. Very important thing for us today is to understand the concept of ideal state of Plato. We all know that the father of political science, Aristotle, is also his student. Aristotle also studied in academy. Here the important thing was establishing ideal society. What does this ideal society mean? For Plato, he says it should consist of certain important features. First of all, classifying the society, establishing justice, communism of property and communism of wives, philosopher kings, the method of education. He goes on elaborating this. First of all, he says society has to be classified. How to classify this society? So society has to be classified according to their abilities. And it draws the analogy, because we find always it is in a dialectic form, and also we find analogy in his writing. He compares the animals, mind, soul, and so on. While classifying this society, Plato says the first class is the philosopher king, who is ruled by the spirit, reason, and the second one is the warrior by spirit, producers by appetite. He says the first group is gold, philosopher kings to be gold, the second group, that is the warriors, to be silver, and then the producers to be iron. After classifying this society, he says that each class will have to perform their own duty and they should not meddle with the other group, because meddlesomeness in society is the greatest problem or disease in society. And these philosopher kings are the topmost class, who are the rulers. Warriors, yes, they take care of protecting the state, and rest of the people come under the producer class. And the next feature that we find is justice. The masterpiece of Plato is Republic, and we find that the whole Republic revolves around one concept, that is justice. How to establish justice in society? Because as I told you, the death of his master hurt him so badly that he could not think of any other thing except reforming society. So justice is giving one his due. Whatever is expected of a person, whatever has to be given to a person will have to be given. That is establishing justice. Justice is very important. As health is to body, he says justice is to social order. So justice is doing one's duty without meddling with the other. Not meddling, that is meddlesomeness, he says. For which he has the capacity, he has to select a field, area, for which he is having the particular capacity and work towards it. There he emphasizes justice and not to meddle with things. The next aspect we find is communism of wives and communism of property. It's not a new thing that Plato has discovered or invented, but it existed priorly in Greece. Pericles and many other thinkers had spoken about this communism. Here, he attaches communism only to two classes. One is the first philosopher king, the other is the warrior class, and not to the producer class. Why this communism of property and wives? Communism of property, if we take, he says that once they rule, they should not have that greed. If they have the family, then they start having that greed to accumulate wealth. In order to prevent that and give good rule or governance, he says that such class should be kept separately without having any responsibility of property or of family. Here we find how relevant Plato is, seeing the present democracy and the present system, where it has ended up with corruption, how rulers misuse power for their selfish gains. I think this point I always stress that Plato is very relevant. So when they do not have anything of their own, they will not have those selfish interests. Instead, they concentrate on the welfare of society, welfare of people, and welfare of the state. That is why he says, philosopher kings are the people of gold and they don't require any gold. They are so honest, seekers of truth, seekers of justice, and also welfare of the people. So if they do not have any property, and they will have no responsibility, no other worries apart from concentrating on the welfare and progress of the state. Communism of wives, he says, family is another responsibility, great responsibility. When they have their own children and their own family, I think that prevents the good governance, and that's why they should not have their own wife or children. The state will have to take care of their children and their family. But he says, philosopher king should not be denied of any need, any desire. Everything should be provided, but not their own. Even children, the progeny also they speak about. They say that in which season they will have to breed or they will have to have children. What type of women should be contacted by such people, because he is very much particular that good children will have to be produced by those philosopher kings for the progress of society. And education, he says, it's very interesting to know that up to 17 years we find Plato concentrates on education primarily on music, moral stories, and gymnastics. Only after 17 we find he talks about this military education. He also says that how people in the adolescence should be prevented by wine and women, how they have to control themselves. And then he speaks about after 25 on mathematics, geometry, science, and so on. After 35, apprenticeship begins, and it goes on up to 50 years. After completing all this holistic education, he can become a philosopher king. And this process of education, he says, government should own everything. Government should provide education. Free education and compulsory education is very much important. And he also gives the important thing what we find in Plato, and we have to appreciate, is during those days he gives equal power to women. And he says that women has even the right over her body. This is exceptional. What I found in Plato should be appreciated. So the main aspects in ideal state, what I told you already, is the communism of wives, communism of property, the classification of society and the state, the justice, concept of justice, the education he speaks about, and the philosopher kings who are the masters to rule. And with these, though the critics say that it's an utopian theory which cannot be brought into practice, we find certain things what he has explained is very relevant even today, and he had only concern of establishing justice in society and for the progress of the state. And we have to really appreciate all the concerns of Plato for the society and the people and for the generations to come. And his knowledge is also great, because not only in one aspect he had mastered, he is a master of so many sciences. Thank you.